There's two things that you need if you want to build a high-performing recruitment team. One of them is the offer that you're going to make to the recruiter, and the other is what you're going to put in place in terms of managing the recruiter. So if you're interested in learning how to make a good offer to a recruiter, I made another video explaining that, so go and check that out. In case you're new here, my name is Mohammed Adris, and on this channel I talk about everything that's worked for me in relation to Islam, family and business. I'm going to go through 7 different things that I do regularly to make sure that I'm managing the recruiter in the best way possible and ensuring that the job doesn't just serve me and my personal needs or my business, but it also serves the recruiter and the recruiter's personal needs and their interests. So the first is to make and set clear objectives. And although that sounds cliche, what that really means is make sure that you set clear targets. How many interviews are you going to get done? How many placements are you going to get done? And then track backwards. What does that mean? How many interviews does it take to get 2 placements a month? I say 2 placements a month because if your fees are somewhere between 5 and 6k, you're going to break that 10k per month barrier. And it's a good starting point for a recruiter. Beyond that, especially once you plug in AI and automation and some of the other softwares that I've mentioned in my other videos, like that needs to be a little bit higher, more like 150k at a minimum in terms of revenue, and then calculate backwards. What's the size of the average fee and how many fees do you have to pull in to achieve that number? And then how many interviews do you have to get based on the average number of interviews you get before you get a placement? And those 2 metrics, in my view, should be the only targets for a recruiter. Not on billings, not on call time, not number of emails sent, not number of CV spec'd, just purely how many interviews and how many placements. And the reason why I say that is because recruiters, especially if they have a really high month, like let's just say the average fee is 6k, but they managed to get this one placement that was like £20,000 in revenue. What that does, especially if you've targeted them on 2, which would result in effectively 12 grand in revenue, is that they've exceeded their monthly target. And it gives them an excuse to just say, you know what, let's take a laid back approach. Now, every recruiter is going to be different and they're going to be hungry. Some will want more and some will want to get to 30k and 50k and 60k, all possible and done within our business. But if you target them on number of placements, now it's irrelevant how big the fee is because you just want them to get placements in as regularly as possible. And that has a direct impact on how well you serve your clients, because if you do more deals, then ultimately you're going to have more happy clients, because that's what they expect from you, which is finding good employees for their business. So not only do you want to set a clear objective, but you also want to standardize that, meaning that this is the normal result for a consultant, this is the normal result for a senior consultant, and this is the normal result for a more senior level position. And you do that by implementing standard operating procedures on how to do certain parts of the job, because if you were once that person, or you might still be, if you can say, this is how many calls and messages and CV sent result in this many number of interviews, and based on that many interviews, this is how many placements you get. Now, if you can do it, there's no reason why you can't hand that responsibility off to the next person. So if you've standardized your own process, it puts you in a better position to become an employer if you haven't already hired. And if you have hired, then you use your best employee as the standard process, meaning that this is the level that everybody needs to be operating at. And then you get that employee to teach all of the other ones how they can become better recruiters. So set clear objectives and standardize every single process. And this really ties in with the next thing that I'm going to say, which is make that the minimum standard, meaning that if your highest performing employee is making 250k a year or more, and the majority of people sit around 180k, and then you've got one employee doing 130k, which isn't too bad for a consultant to be generating in terms of revenue, then that one person, their standard and their game needs to be increased to get them to at least 150, if not 180, just to average out the team. Because not only are you constantly trying to pull the team higher, but the lowest performing employee is pulling the team lower, because everyone else sees that, hey, look, this person is only doing that and they're still here and they've got a job. So I could operate like that and get away with it. I've been here longer and I've earned more money for the company. And all these little psychological games go through different people. But like, if you standardize and then set the minimum expectation for every single employee, then that also creates a framework for you for what's going to make a good employee when you do come to hire them, which is a challenge that we're facing at the moment, where we get a load of applicants and people interested in working for us, but we just reject them because we have a minimum standard and we are not dipping below that. So if anybody wants to join our company, then yeah, we have a framework for what makes a good recruiter, and we have that through a tried and tested formula with the amount of people that we've hired and fired in some cases. But now we're able to take that framework into an interview and say, right, this is what we expect from a junior recruiter, and this is what we expect from a consultant, and this is what we expect from a senior consultant. Like, this is our standard. Where do you fall into the bracket? Because the job title is irrelevant. Like, I don't care if somebody joins us as a junior and they want to call themselves senior. Like, yeah, give yourself the job title, I don't care. It's also worth making clear from the get-go what makes a good recruiter, what are the standards that they need to stick to, given their title and their responsibility and their pay grade, and lay all of that out up front. Because when you do, it raises the bar and the game for every person coming into the company and everyone that's already in the company. And that brings me on to point 3, which is have regular performance reviews, at least once every 3 months. So instead of having annual reviews where you're setting targets for a year down the line and then having a review again where you discuss pay rises and so on, like, set quarterly targets. 90 days from now, this is what you're going to achieve. Let's have another meeting in 90 days. Book the meeting for the review in 90 days during the review that you're having right now. Because not only does it set a clear expectation on what's going to be achieved on the next 90 days, it's a visible result. It's only 90 days away, 3 months, and it's not too difficult to imagine that time frame. It gives a shorter time for you to make sure that you're managing and monitoring your employees in the best way. And I say monitoring not in the micromanagement sense. I mean monitoring from you're there if anything goes wrong. And not only that, but you're also there when things do go right, and you can help them do more of that. And that's an important point, I believe, to mention when it does come to performance reviews of employees. Is a lot of managers, certainly the case in my past experiences, was always a case of, what have you done? What have you achieved? How have you done that? Why don't you do more? And these are the kind of questions that you get in reviews. But what about the other way around? Like, what have I done to help this recruiter become better at their job? Have I given them the adequate training? Have I explained how to do things? Have I shown them how to do things? Have I sat with them one-to-one? Did I do it on a Teams call? Did I record it for them so that they can reference it back again? Like, I question myself more than the recruiter if something doesn't go to plan. And I believe that to be true for many of my past employees, including the ones that we got rid of, because it's like, did I do everything possible within my control to make sure that this person was a high-performing employee? And in 1 or 2 cases, there were lessons learned and I implemented them and they worked well. But for every single employee that is hired, fired, or even thinks about resigning, I ask myself the question, what happened step by step for them to arrive at that decision, or for me to arrive at that decision? And what would a different step-by-step scenario look like if I wanted them to achieve a different scenario? Because at the end of the day, I want to promote and pay more to my employees as they become more and more valuable to me. And that just ties in with the incentive for the recruiter, because if you pay them more, then they're going to be happier and they're going to stay with you longer. So why not set them up so that they can do their job properly, give them everything that they want, all their resources, all the tools, all the explanations, all the training, all the automation tools. And when you put all of that together, it's like, okay, you haven't got that much responsibility. So now when you do come in, you should be able to get all of this done. Like 10 to 15K a month in billings is bare minimum. You should be doing more than that on average. And all of that becomes justified because you can say, all this is automated, all this is taken care of, this is not your responsibility, you don't need to manage this whatsoever, it's all being taken care of by this department, this team, and these software, so the only thing you're left to do is book interviews and get deals done. So if they're your only responsibilities, besides sending CVs, then how many placements are you going to do a month? So consider it. Quarterly reviews, and always ask in the review, what can I do to help you do your job better? And you'll be surprised at the amount of times they might turn around and say, hey, I could do some help with this. And now you don't have to pre-plan what kind of training you're going to deliver. Just go and deliver the training that they've asked for. And that moves me on to point 4, which is work-life balance. And it's a bit of a strange one because people see work-life balance as the number of hours you put into work versus the number of hours that you put into your personal time. That's not it. Like, work is work, something that you have to do so that you can earn and provide for your family and do all the cool things that you want to do with your money. But putting all of that aside, work-life balance is more about complementing each other. Meaning that if you have a really good day at work, the chances are you're going to be in a really good mood when you go home to your family, or when you go see your friends and whatever you're doing in your personal time. And then when you do have a really good evening or a weekend break or a holiday with no stress, and you have a really good time, then the chances are you're going to get a good night's sleep, and the next day you're going to come in full of energy, ready to have a good day at work. And it's certainly noticeable, especially in a small team, because when someone comes in and they're not in a good mood, you can see it on their face, like this person is not themselves, like something's up. And a good manager would just go and say, hey, like, I want to have a quick chat with you. And you have a chat with them and just said, I noticed you weren't as lively this morning, everything okay? And just by you asking that question, just shows that you care, and you end up having employees that really appreciate you as a manager. And I don't know why, to me it seems really normal. Like, if you saw somebody who is underperforming or appears to be in the wrong state of mind for what they need to be to get the job done, then you'd question it and just straighten it, just see how you can help out. Point about work-life balance isn't about the number of hours, is how well do they complement each other. So when work is done, is work actually done? And now you can focus on your personal endeavors without you having to interrupt it, or are they constantly being mixed? And I only say that based on my previous experience, because there were times where I had a manager who's like texting me on a weekend asking me about my KPIs and performances. If you are that manager, don't do that. It doesn't work well for your employees. And that moves me on to point 5, which is incentivize performance. Like, the ones who are doing well should be recognized in the company. And it's worth saying it out in the open, saying congratulations to this person who has outperformed their responsibilities. And say it publicly. Let everybody know that this is somebody who is high performing and should be recognized. Let the entire team know that this is what it takes to be a good employee, and share their example. And that proves the case, especially if you're sharing an example of an employee who has stepped outside of their responsibilities and then they got recognized for it by the management. Then it sets the expectation from everyone else as well. Like, hey, if I want to get recognized from my boss, then I have to do a little bit more than this. And I would get recognized and appreciated. Not that you want people to be working extra hours, or you want them to be doing way more than what is expected to them. Really simple things like just using your own initiative and getting a function done without having to interrupt your manager. That's how you get recognized. And I've had that within my team. And one of the employees, he'll know who he is if he's watching this video, he was meant to be getting a promotion, but he just missed it. And this was because we set a target for what he needed to do to get his promotion, and he missed it by a few £1,000s because it was a revenue-based target for getting the next pay grade. And I couldn't help but notice and recognize that if I was away one day, he would step up and show other team members how to do certain things and fix their problems for him, additional to his responsibilities. And I never asked him to do that. So I never said to him, you're in charge while I'm away. I just said nothing, like, I'm going away, and that was it. And when I got back and I saw the chats and the messages and the catch-ups and all of that, it's like, okay, yeah, he was really helpful. Like, yeah, I can see that he helped him do that. And I had this conversation internally, and we ended up giving him a soft promotion. And we just said, look, you deserve to be in this position because of all the things that you've done. He got the promotion and he got a part of the pay rise. And we just said, look, we'll give you this much anyway because you've done this thing amazingly. So the next phase of it and the full set of the promotion is when you hit your target. And because he was in a really, really good mood, well, I'm assuming he's in a good mood, he certainly looked like it, he went on to hit his promotional target very quickly and then get the next promotional target. And then now we're talking about his third promotional target. So incentivize and recognize performance. And that's not necessarily just related to interviews and placements, but even when that is the case and somebody is outperforming, make sure you share it with the entire team and congratulate them and say well done to them. And that moves me on to the 6th point. Understand what your employees are doing day to day. And when you consider some of the responsibilities that they have, you have to ask yourself the question, can you use AI, automation, or an assistant to take this responsibility away from the recruiter, especially if it's not connected to generating revenue? Because that's the job of the recruiter. You'll have it in your daily calls when you're having them, what they're spending their time on and what their objectives are, and always ask yourself the question, can this be done by a software, or can I get an assistant to do it? Because if it can, then get the software, get the assistant. And that just emphasizes the sixth point that I was going to make, which is adopt software as much as possible and as quickly as possible, because it's only going to replace what you are doing that is working well, and you'll be able to do it even quicker and even faster, and it's only going to amplify your results. And last but not least, and it connects in with one of my earlier points, is praise good work. Really simple. When someone does a good job, tell them that they've done a good job, because if they have, the chances are they probably went through some challenges, either in the function or psychologically, and probably had to battle some internal demons to get to that point. And for them, this is a really big achievement. So recognize it. Just say, well done. This work is amazing. Keep it up. Stay focused and keep up the good work. So putting it all together, there's 7 things that I do very regularly with my entire team. And it helps me ensure that everyone is recognized, everyone's happy, everyone is a high performer. The standard is set in place for what makes a high performer, good work is recognized, and we do everything that we possibly can to make their jobs easier, simpler, and faster. Meaning that they get more done, they inevitably earn more, makes them happier in their job, makes them happier in their personal lives, and the whole work-life balance scenario is exactly that, which is how happy are you in both environments that you're in your professional setting and your personal setting, and they complement each other. And it's like a wheel that goes around. So you just make sure you keep up your end of the bargain, which is keeping them happy in their professional setting, and their personal setting will take care of it for itself. And that's it for now. See you in the next one.